Hello there, Miss Marwa.
Hello.
I am Courtney, the CEO of Plant Medicine People. This is one of my dearest friends, Marwa Mitchell, who not only loves plant medicines, but has this incredible expertise in the realm of quantum healing and past life regression. So that's like a what to a lot of people. So tell us what that is, this work that you do in these spaces.
Yeah, so past life hypnosis is a hypnosis technique that allows you to go into a state. It's a hypnosis state, a theta brainwave state, where you're able to access your higher self. And your higher self is what's called like your whole psyche. So it's your subconscious mind, your conscious mind, but without the division of the ego. It's also connected. I believe, and a lot of others believe, that it's connected to divinity. It's the part of you that's connected to the quantum field that has all the answers, that is connected to the past, and future. And so it's a pretty magnificent space that we access through hypnosis in the practice.
How do you know there are past lives? How do we know this to be true?
Well, I mean, the experience itself of going through hypnosis in past lives obviously is confirmation. Um, but how do we know we've gone through past lives? I would say from experience, there's a knowing in me, and then working with the plants as well, being able to access that piece of us that has obviously experienced so much more than what we're experiencing right now in our present lives. But I don't know. I mean, how do you know you've experienced past lives, I suppose? What's your
Way to throw it back on me. Um, Two core reasons come in. One, what you're speaking of around the knowingness, around accessing either like talents, information, expertise, things that don't make sense, traumas, actually, things that don't make sense in the context of the life that I've lived, but that I know that I carry. It's like, where did this come from? It had to come from somewhere. So it would make sense that there's more to the story, right? And the other thing, it's the joke that I make around the evolution of consciousness as a whole, that if this whole thing in Earth School, as we call it, is about reaching something like Christ or Buddha consciousness, I'm going to need more than an 80-year life cycle to reach that. So it seems completely illogical to me that we have one life because we're barely scratching the surface in that time period. So that it to me it's illogical to think it's like, well, one and done, because most of us need a lot more in the space of evolution. So that's how I validate that.
Yeah, I mean, even to the point of knowing in some of your relationships, I mean, you can feel that that relationship is not just a one. It wasn't that moment that you saw that person, that something was there and you knew them before. There was just so much more to it. And those karmic relationships, yeah, like exactly when we
Our first
first,
coffee date,
our
where it's
first
like,
coffee date.
what is happening?
I mean, there's no way to me, that knowingness of having looked at you, looked in your eyes and saying, I've known this person for a very long time and I already love her. And how do I already love her? And so that those are the experiences that I think, I mean, a lot of us have already had, whether it be relationships that are karmic and, maybe don't end with a pretty bow at the end, but they at least release a lot of emotions and a lot of past sort of patterns that we've held, that we know that it's not just this lifetime.
There's so much beneath the surface that processes like what you do and working with plant medicines help us to bring it into our awareness. So can you tell us a little bit about what it looks like to work with you? Like, what does one of these sessions actually like look like in terms of the process?
Yeah, the process takes about 4 hours. So it is a long process, but there's a reason for why it's so long. And most importantly, it's really getting to a space of safety with me while we're working together, because there's a trust factor that is being built in this. The first hour or two, usually it's about 2 hours, is actually just us talking. It's the interview portion. And that portion has to do with tell me everything about you. Because I'm going to be guiding you through this hypnosis session. I'm the guide that's going to be asking questions. You'll be answering the questions. So in order for me to know you enough to guide you properly, that's sort of why this interview process is so important. But also it's to build that safety and trust. You'll come into the session with not only intention, but like 10 to 15 questions. The burning questions that are sort of on your mind and your heart. Some of the most common questions include, why am I here? That was my first question. It's like, why did I come here? You know, what's my purpose here? But a lot of people want to know about certain relationships in their lives, things that have people that have eluded them, like, why do I keep, like, why am I still cycling with this person? You know, who is this person? Have I lived with them before? Is this something that's old, that's ancient, you know? But also you can, you know, people come in with collective questions like, what's happening in the world right now? Like, what's going on? Like, why have things been so strange since, you know, 2020? Like, what is this energy? What are we going through? And so going through those questions will be sort of the final part of the interview. Like, let me understand where those questions, usually by that point, I kind of know where the questions are coming from, but we'll go through those questions. And then the second part of the process is another 2 hours, and that's the hypnosis session. So we'll go through the hypnosis piece. You'll go into a relaxation mode, and then we'll begin by entering into a life. It could be a past life. It could be your current life. You could actually enter into your childhood. That's happened. You can enter into another world. You can enter in as an animal or a bird.
Happened to me, condor, right here.
You can enter in as a bird. That's happened. Yeah. And then the final portion of the hypnosis session is actually you going into us connecting with your subconscious mind, that whole psyche, that higher self. And that's when we get to ask the questions. But the first question is, why did you show us that past life? Like, what is that all about? You know, clarify what that experience was about. And usually, again, it's obvious, but it's so great hearing it from your higher self explaining, often in third person. Kat, you've gone through this a few times. In third person, well, she really needed to see that this experience that she's having right now is connected to this life, and here's how. But then we get to go through all of your questions as well. You know, she wants to know about her purpose. She wants to know why, if she's meant to do this in her career or with her love life. And then finally, we once we go through all the questions, we'll get sort of a final take from the higher self. It's such a beautiful time to kind of connect with that energy, and that's the session. And then we'll bring you out of hypnosis, and that's sort of the entirety of the 4 hours.
So the process of getting hypnotized is a barrier to entry for a lot of people because it's sort of a mystery. There's also sometimes an element of like, oh, is this safe? Like, can I be hypnotized? Have you encountered people that couldn't be hypnotized? Is this something we all have access to?
Everybody has access to this. So if you think about your driving, everybody's done this. Everybody's driven someplace and they end up somewhere and they have no idea how they got there because it's such a natural, you're being, you know, you're in subconscious mind at that point. You're in a hypnotic state. And so you end up being, you know, at home, but you don't really remember how you got there because you were sort of in this space. Also, when you wake up, that dream space between waking up and like coming out of sleep, that's the same state. Everybody experiences this state. So when people say that they can't be hypnotized, every day they're in that theta state and they're experiencing it already, right? And so I can say from experience that although everybody is able to get into the state, there are certain things that make it easier for people to enter into the state. And one of those is having practiced being able to be in a meditative state. So as you are able to get your mind into that quiet place, and being present, that is a strength when you're going through hypnosis. However, everybody can be hypnotized. It's just a matter of getting into that space. And that's why that interview is so important as well, that time that we have together. It's creating that safety, that relaxation that's needed to move into the next step.
Okay, as best you can. I'm going to ask you to try to describe what it's like to be in a hypnotized state, but I know that's like people asking me, "What's it like to be on ayahuasca?" I'm like, well, that's it's impossible to give language to, and yet, what can you say about it?
I remember the first time that I went into hypnosis, I was a bit surprised of how aware I was. And there is an awareness in the sense that you feel awake. Now, the difference that I experience, that I get described to me as well, is that you feel like a piece, your conscious mind, your egoic mind is sitting in sort of a corner. You can hear them speak, but they're not using your mouth to speak. It's something else that's utilizing your the connection to the external output. It's almost like you plug into a different outlet. Whereas normally you're plugged into the ego, the conscious mind outlet. It's like something takes that out and puts it into the other outlet, and that's what has control of your faculties at that time. And so you can feel that it was unplugged because you can still hear it, but it's no longer using the external output. That's the best way I could describe
That's
it.
really well said, because what I'll share, having had this experience with you and others, it's so cool that you start speaking and the ego that's in there is like, what are you saying? Like this, what? Like that was how it was validating to me that I was in a hypnotic state. Is first of all, the answers come immediately, intuitively, not from the place I'm used to in terms of thought. And a lot of times, if you're asking me a question about what's happening in this past life or whatnot, I have the answers, and my ego is like, where is this coming from? Like, how do you know this? And there's even sometimes skepticism around, well, because I remember the most recent one we had, it didn't go the way I expected it to at all. And so my ego was like, this can't be right. And yet the part of me, higher self, answering the questions is very authoritative, very clear, very confident. There's no like wavering of, I'm not sure. It's like, oh, it's this and this happened and this person's here. And it's wild. It is like channeling, but we're channeling the wise, deep, like timeless part of ourselves.
Yeah, for anyone who's channeled, it's exactly the same way. It feels exactly like that. If you've ever done automatic writing, if you've ever worked with, that space, it's the same feeling. It's just coming. It's the flow is absolutely what makes me know it's not that conscious mind that's speaking, because I often, I'll hesitate. I'll think twice before I speak. I don't, and so I wish I was always in that state. I'm working on it. I would
Yeah.
love to always be in that beautiful flow state, but the biggest gift is knowing that I can be, is that it's there, and that I have that voice inside of me, and she's such a badass. She's amazing, and to know that that voice is even there. I mean, that was probably the best gift that I got coming out of the first session I ever had, you know.
Thank you for saying that. I can resonate. I love doing the sessions with you in part so that I can get to know that badass, wildly. Mine is kind of, my higher self is very bossy, very like, this is how it is, and this is what happened. And she seems, spacious and kind enough, but she's like so laser. And so there's like such confidence. And it's really enticing to know that that's part of, the truth of who I am, because there's so much like fear and smallness and whatnot that I experience sometimes. It's like, oh, my higher self is a badass, just like yours. That feels really good to know, to get to connect with, let alone the information that comes through, all the
Yeah.
wisdom that comes through.
I do hear her in you. a lot.
Aw.
Yeah, I do hear her, and I know her now because I've sat with her, and so when I hear you come out that way, it's so beautiful to see that part of you shine. I think for me, one of my, one of the things in my life that I work as I sort of clear my subconscious garden, I know that as I get closer to her, as I get closer to her, I'll hear her more and more come through me. And, that would be the, if I could do one thing in one life, if I could have her come out like that, that would be a success.
I
That's a
think that's
check.
such a beautiful point about the process as a whole, is it's not just getting answers to our question. It is very much like working with plant medicine, that it is a process of self-discovery, of getting to tap into these ancient, powerful, wise parts of ourselves that actually, have it down. Sometimes we feel like in this world we're kind of fumbling, at least I do. And when I connect with my higher self, she's like, "You're doing great. We've done this many times before. It's all good. Like, we're here for it." And that feels really, really not just empowering, but comforting. And, that's the answer of why we're here. We've got some missions and our higher self knows it, and they're supportive, and we don't have to do it perfectly. And it just feels good. It's almost like connecting to a part of ourselves that is like, "Hey, fantastic. You're doing great. This is exactly where you need to be." And I think we all kind of need that sometimes. So can you tie this in though to the whole world of plant medicines?
Yeah.
How do
Yeah.
they connect?
Well, I mean, plant medicines work in the same space, in that space of all knowingness, in that totality, that quantum. And I've had ayahuasca rifle through my subconscious mind, literally like a filing cabinet, pull something out and be like, "Let's look at this today." And I'm like, "I don't want to look at that today." No. Similarly, I mean, it's the same access point. And so working with that, again, making the unknown known, right? Like making the subconscious mind, that the part that's operating all these things within us from past lives, from our present life, especially from our childhood, making that known. That's exactly where they're working as well. Um, plants are also trying to teach us wisdom, of course, or remind us of wisdom that is accessible to us. We have, ayahuasca always says, you have it all in you already. It's already there, but it's that reminder of the wisdom within us. So, so in that sense, the hypnosis, the accessing of the higher self through hypnosis is very much a continuation of my work with the plants. It's clarification in a different way for me, because it uses, whereas plants will use so many typal imagery, but ayahuasca will also speak with you. Through hypnosis, you're actually using language. It is language, it's all language, right? Like you're getting yourself, you're speaking the words. So it's a different way of getting to the information, but it's working with um, the same tools. It's like the same tools that we need to access information through with plants. We're getting the same thing through hypnosis. It's just a different method.
So would you say this process is also, I think it's good probably both for people integrating, plant medicine experiences. Sometimes we have things come in and we need more information.
Yeah.
I've had flashes of past lives and things. I'm like, what is that? And I can dive into that with this. But would you also say this is beneficial for people who maybe plant medicines feel a bit too much, too intense, and that this is a way, I think it's gentler, but equally potent in accessing these higher parts of ourselves. So both types of people are welcome.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's definitely a thing. It's a subtler, less intense experience. But again, it's a subtle experience. So in the sense that the information you're getting, you're aware. You're not in another, you're not in a portal. You know, you're not in the portal of the plant medicines. You're aware, you're awake. Again, it's just a plug that gets switched. It's not quite as intimidating, I would say, as sitting in ayahuasca circle. That takes a different kind of, mindset to go into that space. It's a really great way of dipping your toes into subconscious work. I think it's a very safe way to do it as well, and also could open the doors to wanting to work with plants, but absolutely, I do think it could be a tool for those who are maybe a little hesitant to step into the world of entheogens.
I love that because that means it's appropriate for people dipping in their toes and also for people who want to come back in without, needing to sign up for the next plant medicine retreat. So do you do these sessions with people? They're remote by phone, by video? Like, how can people work with you?
Yeah, over Zoom. So we do it over Zoom. You're in the comfort of your own home. You've got your space, you're not driving afterwards. That's what I love about being able to have these sessions over Zoom, is that we're connected, but you're also both, you're in the safe space, you're in your spot. And so, yeah, it's done over Zoom.
Well, I can speak from experience that the process is really, really special. So, I highly recommend, if this resonates with anybody listening, have a session with Marwa. It's a journey. It's a gentle journey, but it's no less profound. So thank you for sharing your wisdoms. Yeah, it's good to see you. If anybody wants to work with Marwa, you can go to plantmedicinepeople.com, click on coaches, and she's there. You can see all of the options. Thank you for listening, everybody. Journey well out there.
Thank you. Bye.